Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show. Today, once again, we are going to talk about the security challenges that the Pakistan is facing. Either it is from the western border or from the eastern border. Today, the DGISPR had a very detailed background discussion with the senior journalists, and he spoke about the challenges that we are facing regarding terrorism from the western border. He did talk about the Indians' intentions, as there are news that India is going to launch its three forces. I mean, tri services, some exercises they are going to launch in the Indian as well as Arabian Oceans, and that is in fact a series of Indian uh, efforts to uh, try to create some kind of a face saving for the Modi government as well as the armed forces, since they were being bitterly defeated and destroyed and demonized in the May last, and they want to recover from there as well. And there are certain, they have been issuing threatening statements against Pakistan. They were talking about Sindhu too. So let us see what's going to happen. I have a very prominent guest with me, Commodore Khalid Chishti. He's a defense analyst. Thank you very much, Mr. Khalid, for joining me. Uh, please tell me that how you see these exercises being conducted, planned by the Indians.
Thank you very much, Vaitsa, for the kind invitation extended to me. This has not come as a surprise. One thing is from weather point of view, the other can be from the composition point of view. Let me tell you something about the weather. The weather in Indo-Pak in this is the most conducive, and favorable for these. Why does that happen is because the monsoon period is over, the rains and floods and everything has gone by, and the fog and mist of December and January in this region has not set in yet. And that is why we see these kind of exercises being conducted. Most of the time in Pakistan also we conduct these exercises during this weather, because the weather itself, the temperature wise, the weather is not very hostile. So it's one of the most conducive weather. That's one thing. What is different in this is that this time they are focusing mainly on the sea, on the Creek area, obviously deployed three services. What I can share with you through my experience and knowledge and interaction with Pakistan Air Force is that during the May conflict, the Indian Air Force, just before the war had started, Pakistan Air Force undertook a lot of exercises over the sea. They went in to do deep strikes, different kind of interception missions, and other surveillance and electronic warfare missions. And the Indians took that as obviously that something is coming up from the southern side, so that they had to safeguard those things. This was just end of April and the beginning of May. So Indian had to deploy their strategic assets, and most important, the Rafale had to be taken down. Some of the Rafale aircraft were deployed down south with just kind of any prevention they wanted to do it as a precaution. So what I know of my knowledge is that the Rafale did not connect with the southern assets so well, because it is deployed to the north. They have number 101 squadron and number 17 squadron. One squadron is at Ambala. This has about 18 aircraft. The other squadron is at Hashimara, which has another 18 aircraft. These 17 and 101 squadron both lost, obviously, the Rafale later on 6th and 7th May. And some of the airplanes from that squadron were deployed south. When they came to integrate these with the southern assets, the sea assets, and some land, probably they did not find it a very pleasant experience. So that is why I believe that they want to plug the gap. But if there is a time to come, if they have to launch an offense or they have to go in any kind of hostilities with Pakistan, so I believe that this is their motive, that they want to integrate Rafale particularly with the southern assets, that the radars, the airborne early warning, the jammers, the ground-based air defense systems, and the missiles they're deployed in the south. So that's the main premise of this. Let me share with your viewers who are more of maybe English speaking. Let me share with you what the name Trishul stands for. The exercise name is Trishul. This is a spear with three heads like this. which has a head or tip, which is obviously very sharp. And this spear, this Trishul, is named after Shiva, Lord Shiva. It's after him that they remember him. And what is the purpose of this Shiva? They used to call it that this is to eliminate the evil and to restore balance. Now, this meaning tells you so much. What do they consider and what are the intentions? So, this is the background, probably. And if you have something further to ask, I'll
So,
continue.
uh, the weather is not hostile, but our enemy is a hostile. So, kindly tell me that what are their intentions? What's going on in the minds of the Indians military as well as the political leadership?
Vahisab, I always say that there's a huge pressure that you know more than me, that there's a huge pressure on Prime Minister Modi diplomatically from the external factor. Prime Minister, President of USA is not very excited about this relation, although they've had defense relation or pact just 2 3 days back. We can take it up later. But last 5 6 months, we saw that the American president was not excited about the relations in India, particularly Prime Minister Modi. He'd been taunting them and he'd been reminding them of the loss of the aircraft that the whole world has now guessed whom is he talking about, number one. And number two is that they have a huge internal pressure politically and obviously on the electoral front. The Indian Prime Minister is facing the election soon coming up in Bihar, and those elections are obviously of a huge population. That's about 10% of Indian population. It's about 130 crore total of population, out of which about 7 crore are the voters. So it's about 10% of India, which sets the mood for the other provinces, which the other elections are soon to come and follow this election. That's number one. So they have not gained any significant mileage after May 7, 6 and 7, and even 10th. So there's a huge pressure from the opposition. There's a huge pressure from the voters that what do they have to show up? Why did they go for Pakistan, offense against Pakistan? You see, whenever a force or military goes into action against an enemy, they have some military objectives drawn well before the war. And when the war is unfolded, later when it is concluded, you got to justify those plans, at least to yourself and to your people. What did we do? Why did we go in for offensive? Because they had the offensive option. We did not. We were just to defend. That's one. So these pressures have led to these exercises because they're finding some way. That's why you heard numerous times that they always say it is continuing. Sindur 2 will also follow. They want to continue to have the mind of the people bogged down to this myth that probably something is going to come up. Maybe we are going to defeat Pakistan soon. Maybe we will take the revenge. Maybe we'll equate the score. And maybe we'll teach them a long-term lesson. Nothing is likely to happen, inshallah ta'ala. I can tell you from the perspective of Pakistan Air Force, by my virtue of my recent visit to Pakistan Air Force headquarters, these operations room, obviously, which were obviously very, very volatile and very, very aggressive during the recent combat. And when I went through that, Indians should not be surprised again. They should not take a chance. And why am I saying is that it is unbelievable to a degree that Pakistan Air Force has the ability to watch them, their movements, their deployment, their transportation of the assets and the personnel from one place to another. This is what happened in May, and it will happen again. And PF, they will find particularly well prepared, well beyond their expectation yet again. And I can say on behalf of Pakistan Army also, it's well read, well suited, they are well calculated, and they're almost deployed to sufficient strength in the southern province, our province of Sindh. We can take on any surprise from Indian side.
So they'll be closer to the Rajasthan and Gujarat, something, and then on the ocean. So, from military point of view, how close they are to our borders, in in the ocean as well as on the surface on the border that we have India from Sindh.
Vaisab, let's take it up in three parts. One is the capability. Number two is the resolve. And number three is the intent. They are plus on one, they are minus on two. They are plus on the strength, no doubt about it. They have the capability. They have huge number of aircraft, they have huge number of ships, they have huge number of soldiers on the ground. Absolutely no doubt about the capability. You're talking about then the will to fight. That we saw the will to fight. The aircraft lost on 6th and 7th of May. and the Air Force was grounded for next 10 days. This is almost three times Air Force than Pakistan Air Force. Does an Air Force or can an Air Force defend being grounded for 10 days against an enemy against whom they launched the offensive? How can you do that? That's one. They said that we found their chairman, chief of defense staff said that our tactics were faulty. Do you improve your tactics while pitching against the Pakistan Air Force in real war and then you want to improve the tactics? Do you do that in peacetime or do you do that in wartime? That's one. So nothing has changed. Capability I've just shared with you. Will to fight. The Air Force never got airborne for 10 days. Our Air Force was flying every day, dozens of sorties close to the border, all across Pakistan, from north, from Gilgit Skardu to Gwadar and Pasni. Let me show you. We were all there waiting. So that was our will to fight. And then the intent, again, they're minus. Because intent can be obviously converted into a reality anytime. But intent has to follow a result. When you show an intent that we want to shoot you, this is what they did in 6 and 7. They showed the intent, they came up. The lesson drawn was, should they have done it? The answer is no. So if you conclude it, it is easier said than done. Capability, yes. Will to fight, no. Intent, yes and no both. But then at the end, result, it has to be positive. Only then the people will feel excited about it. Otherwise, it will be another big embarrassment that DGSPR had said today.
As you know, that the irrationality is, in fact, persuading the Indian political leadership as well as their military leadership, which has, in fact, become, arm of the RSS. They are part of the political ideology instead of representing their state as a defense, as a military that the other countries do have, like Pakistan do have. So, in that perspective, and when they want to win the elections, on the basis of their military or their military might. So, what do you expect from a government like Modi?
Vaisab, you see, for last 78 years, whenever I was in the Air Force doing courses, studying myself or teaching sometime in different universities, including NDU, we used to compare the two armed forces. And obviously, I used to respect Indian forces from one perspective that for 78 years, they have not indulged themselves and not told any political agenda. They have never come into, never taken over. That was a credit for them. But this time, I'm disappointed. And that's not the track record. This is a force which is towing a political motive or a political agenda of a prime minister, which is again not rational at all. The whole world is saying that he's fanatic, he's extremist. You already said that they are towing the agenda of the RSS. That's so unfortunate. It's a professional army, navy, and air force. They should be doing the business. They should be living to the expectation of the people of India, not a party. So that's a strange thing which has unpleasantly surprised me, that a force which was known to be very professional, obviously, irrespective they were our enemy, and I respect them for their professionalism. They meant their own business. They never entered into any kind of towing any line. But this time I see since May and a little before that, you saw that they are all out to tow a line which they do not even believe is justified. And the performance has been seen in May. And God forbid if there is a chance again, they will see it yet again. Because I keep saying that if your cause of the war is justified, the war will be justified. And if your war is justified, the performance of your armed forces will be justified. Now look at Pakistan side. Our cause was justified, our wars was justified, and our performance, alhamdulillah, was also justified.
How you see recently a paper was signed between the America and the India, the defense minister of the two countries, I mean, a defense secretary of United States of America and the Indian defense secretary, they signed, defense minister signed a pact for 10 years. So what does it mean? What signals they want to give to Pakistan and how they are a kind of a challenge for our defense?
It's a roller coaster kind of answer that I'll give you because in 2005, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, Indian Prime Minister, signed an agreement for the first time with America, which had a life of 10 years. In 2015, they signed it again and extended for another 10 years. In 2025, they've done it again. And on the face of it, it looks absolutely like a routine thing. And that's not so. You see, for the first 20 years, from 2005 to 2025, when we look at it, we were not the good guys in the eyes of America, Pakistan. We were suspected all this time. We were even blamed for dual standards. We were saying that we have two faces. We were saying that we are minting money or favors from America, but sympathizing to the anti-American forces. Okay, so that was not a surprise to me when the America went into sign in 2005. When it was extended, we were still not on the right side of America classically. But this time, since especially May 2025, the whole nation of almost 25 crore people, we expected that the America was very much inclined towards us and our leadership, military and political both. So I was thinking that it will be deliberated. But at all time, I was suspicious of this favor that they would, a kind of a good relation that we thought that we have good relation between USA and Pakistan. And I hope we still have good relations. Now, when they went in with India, it gave me a little more surprise than the previous two agreements or pacts that they had signed. Why? Because we were on the right side of America for the first time in the last 20 years. That's one. Number two, India was on the left side of America for the last 5 months. You've seen that American president has probably reminded 45 times about the 10 beautiful brand new, seven beautiful brand new aircraft. So whom is he
Mhm.
talking about? So I think he was trying to, I believe now, let me conclude by saying that I believe that probably the American president was using this defense pact as a pressurizing tool, carrot and stick. On one hand, he was pressurizing the Indians that you're buying oil from China, Russia, you are doing this, I'll impose tariff, you got to be in line towards me, and obviously, and you should. India was also blamed that it's a pioneer country to establish BRICS, in which Brazil, Russia, China, and India are members. Obviously, India is a pioneer country, founding country. So, American president didn't like it. He said that the BRICS people, are trying to corner my dollar. This is what he used to say. So he was not happy with Prime Minister Modi. So I was thinking that on one hand, he was trying to bully and pressurize India overall, and on the other hand, as a carrot, I think American president must have been using, I believe that, I don't have a proof, but must have been using that agreement as a carrot that if you come on our line, which the Indians have come, they promised they've stopped buying the oil from there. They are not very active on BRICS at the moment, at least. And then obviously, probably you, Vaisab, you'll agree with me, you are a senior journalist, you'll agree with me, these defense pacts do not get signed overnight. They're not
Yeah.
just typed and printed and signed. A lot of teams do the homework, the diplomats, the military people, politicians. They give an approval, and only then these kind of agreements take place. So I believe that for the last 4 or 5 months, when the president of America was pressurizing India, probably using this agreement as a weapon of or a tool of incentive with India, and this is what has done. Now coming to what's the damage for us. Now it is yet to be seen what harm can it do to us. Will it be a more of a formality like the past? In the past, the Americans had given India Chinook helicopters and C-130 transport aircraft, and much, much more in the line of military hardware, intelligence sharing, joint
But
Air
they do,
Force exercise.
but they are sorry to cut you, but they also supported them on a civil nuclear program.
They supported them in Chabahar.
Yeah.
That was a favor. There are a lot of things that I can keep mentioning. And they were very soft towards them because of this agreement. Now, to what threatens us the most is the fighter jet, if they obviously are offered. Immediately that will tilt a balance, and especially if we can talk about F-35, which is a stealth aircraft. That's one. However, to my knowledge, to my research and my connectivity here and there, I can share with you that F-35, the Indians were not interested. Why? Because it's a very expensive aircraft to maintain. I was calculating the average cost of one sortie was 30 lakh rupees. It's about 3 million rupees per sortie, per hour almost. So, which is very cost prohibitive. So, Indians thought that they can develop their Tejas aircraft, they can go for more Rafale. That's what I know, unless they change mind in this deal. And yet to be seen, when it unfolds, we'll be in a better position to talk about it.
Now coming to the western border, what's your assessment? This Taliban-India nexus. Do you think that it is just the Indians are, on the one side they were being defeated by Pakistan. That's why they want to damage Pakistan from the western side. And the second is that naturally Modi is intended to win the election in Bihar. So they are using Taliban for that purpose. What's your assessment of that?
Vaisab, you said it right that there's election coming and they are obviously defeated in May. They lost about 7 aircraft, lost one drone. On the land, they never dared to advance their troops, and in the sea, they were never seen throughout these days. They only contested mostly in the air, and a befitting reply was given. The world is a witness to that, and rest is history. What do they intend doing is because they want to equate the score. I think they think that because they've been embarrassed, they have an election coming up, they have been relatively isolated globally, that we've seen because of the Trump and otherwise because the world has started to realize that Pakistan was a peaceful country. Pakistan continued to ask after Pahalgam for the proof, for a joint inquiry, for international collaboration, to fact-finding teams, and what not. But the world now knows that we are a peace-loving country. We didn't want to go into war. We were not the initiator. We were not the offense. No, we were not the offender. Now they went in. They could not show much. And this is probably the easiest way that they can find out is invest in Taliban and hire the terror. When they hire the terror, it will create tension on our western border. And now, what you have seen, the timings, they have gone into exercise towards our southeastern side, whereas northwestern we are stuck with Taliban. So these dimensions, obviously, they must be doing it with the intentions of pulling us in two-dimension, diluting our attention and diluting our armed forces and our weapons and arsenal. But let this be very clear: this Taliban factor and the strikes that Pakistan forces did were not by choice; they were by compulsion. We are not excited about doing these strikes as we were excited to take on Indians that side. It's a different story because our armed forces are meant to engage the Indian forces eastward only. We are not designed. We do not have any war
But
objectives.
then
We
it
not.
was the choice of the Taliban. In fact, they intentionally did it for last 4 years, because today I was in the briefing, and naturally a number of questions of my colleagues, the journalists, they put to the DG. So he was saying that it was not a choice. They force us to go to that extent for the last 4 years. Pakistan has been constantly asking the Taliban regime, which does not in fact represent the entire Afghanistan and the people of Afghanistan.
I agree with you. I agree with you. What the DGISPR said, I'm saying the same thing almost without having. Incidentally, I was at a channel, so could not listen to his brief, but I read through the points. But absolutely right, you are that it was not to our choice. And this is what I said a short while ago, that we are not celebrating this, that we did this. This is by compulsion because the janazas that we were carrying on our shoulder became very heavy. it, it's extremely challenging and very difficult to face a widow, parents of a young soldier an officer, obviously the children of a young officer or a sailor or soldier. So it's extremely challenging. I have done that. I have taken a dead body of a shaheed to the mother, a sister. uh, it was probably one of the most difficult time of my career in the Air Force because it's so painful. Obviously, you cannot even do anything. You're so helpless. Obviously, it's only the probably Allah's will and their faith in their religion and the status of shaheed that Allah Almighty has promised, which keeps them probably alive. That's so painful. So that is why I said that it had become so difficult. We had to do it, and there was no choice left, and it was nothing to our doing. It was doing of the others.
Today, the DG was also talking about the drugs, the crime, and the politics and this terrorism. They had a nexus. They sell drugs on the border, both sides of the borders. They generate money. Some people are also in the politics as well, and that may be one of the reasons that they do talk of not conducting operations, not sending all these people back to Afghanistan. Do talk to these terrorists, which the government has very clearly announced that they can talk to the Taliban regime, whatever kind of a regime it is, but they are in fact holding power in Kabul. But government Pakistan is not going to talk to the terrorists. So do you think that this is one of the challenges that the political leadership and the KP government has to, uh, you know, make a kind of a strategy and plan, not on the basis of political choices, but on the basis of the state's survival and security of the nation.
You see, Vaisab, I think we need to do everything possible to eliminate these cracks and vacuum within our nation. The enemy finds it very easy to penetrate into the masses, the people, when they find that there is a disconnect, there is a lack of harmony, there is a lack of understanding of the cause. Anywhere, I'm not pointing at any side. The FC, the Frontier Corps, was developed by British, and we need to know for why. Why didn't the regular armed forces did the job for them? It was a general who came up, the British general who made this FC, Frontier Corps, and it is applicable till today. Why was it made? Was with the mandate that armed forces alone, stand alone, cannot take on the area. So these forces were made that they can, in collaboration with tribal leaders, the jirgas, the elders, the sardars, they can connect with them and ask them to help them to control the lawlessness in this area. They had the trouble 80 years back, 90 years back, 100 years back. So we need to unite them. My proposal is that the FC was made for this mandate by the British, not Pakistanis. So obviously they said, he said it, the General Warburton, who was the pioneer of this FC, he said a beautiful quote. And one of my great respectable friends, General Tariq Khan, who was the ex-corps commander, he mentioned it yesterday, and as a tribute to him and as an acknowledgement to him, he was talking about it. He said that these generals said, who made the FC, he said, the owners of the land should be the keepers of the land. This is said by a British. I'm not saying, neither General Tariq said. He said that. So let us give the ownership to the people, irrespective. Let there be no vacuum within us, irrespective civil, military, bureaucracy, governance, politicians, students, whosoever. Let's be united. When you are united, you send a message to them, we are one. Like it happened in May 2025. The nation got united like a steel. Enemy couldn't do anything. There were drones falling at Lahore. It was just about a kilometer from my house, and people were picking up and celebrating. There was no party system. There was no religious discrimination. There was no provincialism. There was nothing. It was again attack on Pakistan. Is this the feeling in KPK and Balochistan? Let's have that, revive that connectivity. I'm not saying who's to do what. I'm requesting all stakeholders who are at the helm of the power or helm of influence even. They can influence, they should influence for the positivity.
But the National Action Plan was not, in fact, in totality, it was not being implemented by the successive governments. That may be one of the reasons, after 11 years of signing that document by the political leadership of our country, we are still facing the same kind of a challenge on the western border.
As I said, in case of India, if the cause is justified, the war will be justified. Because our cause was justified, so I think we should have joined for a war which was justified against terrorism. That's just simply one line, and somewhat the answer that I gave to the previous question, that we all need to be united. Otherwise, we keep paying the price, and we are paying prices, irrespective who's. Uh, it, I read a quotation somewhere. It is said that it may be their fault, but it is your problem. So, do we feel happy? Whose problem is this? Whose fault is this? Ultimately, we are the sufferer. So let's not continue to suffer, and let's not continue to blame left and right. I think we all need to get united, and all need to avoid suffering collectively.
Thank you very much, Khalid Chishti, Commodore, retired defense analyst. Thank you very much for your excellent input on this issue. We are grateful for your time and your participation.